Live everywhere.
Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It seems like, I don't know, it feels like everything's just a little bit hot today. We'll see what the levels are like. Oh, I see why. Okay, I can probably adjust that in between uses of soundboard. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, December 18th, 2017. I had to go check the date to make sure where we were, temporally speaking. Kids are off from school today. You'll probably hear them in the background. And that has sent Kagro in the Morning World Headquarters into a tizzy. You know, nothing ever works right. If there's just one thing off, there's a little pea underneath the 99th mattress, there's something wrong in Kagro in the Morning World. But we'll get back on our feet, no doubt. Greg Dworkin should be here to join us and set the ship right. We were a couple of seconds behind in getting all the buttons pressed this morning, just to show you how discombobulated we are. That's how crazy it is. The buttons aren't getting pressed until about 15 seconds after they're supposed to be pressed. It's wild. It's crazy. We're hanging on by a thread, basically, is what we're saying here. Bill in Portland, Maine, he was on time. He says Daily Kos Radio is live now, and it is. Breaking news, Galaxy rejoices as Kagro X reveals that he's the last Jedi. I knew I was late for something. And I guess it's for training, I suppose. I was on my way to the computer to do the show, and all my, I don't know what, midi-chlorians fell out, and I had to pick them up all over the place. And you know how it is when they get loose. It's crazy. The whole world is turned upside down. Okay, I think we're about on track here and ready to roll. Plenty to catch up on over the weekend because, President Trump, he's nuts, etc. Not a big news weekend, except for the fact that the minions went out onto Fox Network, what have you, and sold or tried to sell the idea that a coup was underway. I don't know if you noticed the coup this weekend. It would have been quiet and silent, but I guess the idea being here that anybody who was investigating Donald Trump essentially was engaged in a silent coup against the legitimate government of the United States, which knows that there was no collusion, B, emoluments are perfectly permissible, and C, anybody who would investigate somebody as, I don't know what, awesome, orange, however you want to describe him, as Donald Trump was clearly off their rocker, and it didn't really sink in, but a lot of people were waving the flag over the weekend, the oh my God, help, or waving the American flag upside down. We got to do something about this guy. And everybody was preparing. There was a lot of online prep work being done for the eventuality, I suppose, that Trump ended up firing Mueller. There was a lot of panic about that, a lot of speculation about how exactly he would do it, or whether or not he needed to do it. Maybe the invocation of the word coup was in fact all about getting around the need to fire Mueller and simply undermining his work directly. That I don't know that there's any strategy. It's Donald Trump that we're talking about. There may be no strategy whatsoever. So I'm not certain where I come out on that question, but I'm glad that people were prepping for it. It may have been overreaction, perhaps, but it pays to be prepared. MoveOn.org and others were organizing sign-ups for instant street protest if a firing came through. I never got the sense that it was really anticipated for this weekend, besides which a much better news dump weekend is coming up. But again, that requires Donald Trump to have any strategic vision. I'm not certain that he does. But be on the lookout is the best I can tell you for, the continuance of your democracy. Anyway, let's get started with Greg's report. I'm sure he's got a number of stories to round up. I count the number of lines that you use to tell me about your stories at 9. So that's quite a bit. Let's see. Hi, good morning, Greg.
Hey, it could be worse.
It could be. I don't know. I might not have had breakfast.
Yeah, well, it could be a lot of things. The Mueller story certainly I think is getting the most play.
Yes.
But the rumored date is the 22nd.
Well, that
Thursday.
Yeah, a Thursday, huh? I wonder. I mean, is Trump that? Is it really like I don't have to be done before I start my vacation, or he can't have it on Friday? You do it, and I'll be gone. I'll be at Mar-a-Lago.
Or Friday the 22nd. You know, it's Thursday the 21st. It's Thursday, Friday of this week that it's supposed to happen.
22nd is Friday. Got it. All right.
Yeah. But whether it's late Thursday, early Friday, I don't know. The whole idea is do it before Christmas so that nobody pays attention.
I guess so. Why not on Christmas? That would be more
exciting.
Exciting.
The funny thing is, though, when you try to game it out, you lose because it's Trump. And so if he does it at all, it'll be because they just decided this second without thinking to do it. And there's no way to plan that. But the idea is that on the one hand, his lawyers and the Mueller lawyers are getting less close and friendly. And Jay Sekulow, I guess, who is his attack dog, was on TV raising issues about the legitimacy, which is, completely bogus. And then also yelling about the fact that the transition emails from the Trump team were a topic of discussion. I guess Mueller has about 10,000 of those, and the Trump team wants them back.
All right.
Because executive privilege. And everybody's scratching their head and saying, but it's transition. You weren't the executive. So how could you have privilege?
He's a privileged man.
It's a great question. Renato Mariotti, who is a ex-federal prosecutor, basically says it's a publicity stunt and a political attack, not a serious legal challenge. Trump's lawyers are complaining to Congress, and I would add the media, because their legal argument is a loser. No court would take it seriously. And specifically what happened, Natasha Bertrand reports the Trump transition team's lawyer, Corey Langhofer, told me tonight he still hasn't confronted Mueller or the GSA directly about their alleged missteps, which he outlined to Congress in a letter that was then leaked to Fox. So basically, you see there the strategy. Make noise, and that's because if you have neither the law or the facts, then make a lot of noise.
I remember, yes, it was. There's an old joke about it, about pounding something or other. Right.
If you don't have the law, argue the facts. If you don't have the facts, argue the law. If you have neither, pound your table with your shoe.
Yes. Well, pound the. Okay. Well, pound somebody for God's sake.
But pound somebody. So
Corey with a K.
That's what that's all about. And the ominous part of it, which may turn out to be trivial and nothing, because it's the modus operandi anyway.
No.
But the ominous part about it is that as the rank and file Republicans, particularly Jim Jordan, the Freedom Caucus, the nutcases in the House, yell and scream at Rod Rosenstein and the FBI and people in the Justice Department in open session in Congress, the leaders are fairly quiet about it. The other rumor that's been going around, started by the Democrats on the Intelligence Committee, is that they're worried that Ryan and leadership will shut the committee down. Not that it's done all that much. And the reason it's done something, but not all that much, is because the Republicans on the committee are subpoenaing the wrong thing and going in the wrong direction.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how much of a loss that would be. I think the Senate Intelligence Committee is doing a much better job. And, we'll see there. Of course, one of the problems with the Senate Intelligence Committee is the Republican leadership there, Bob Corker, better than most. But he's got himself a bit of a pickle in terms of this tax bill that appears to be on track to get voted on tomorrow.
Right. I forgot.
A great story in the Hill. Corker demands to know how last-minute provision that would benefit him got added to GOP tax bill. And the question is, are you supposed to compare that to Claude Rains in Casablanca, that he's shocked at this gambling going on in this casino? Or are you supposed to compare it to O.J. Simpson, saying, I will find who really killed my wife?
That's a good question. I thought at first
tough.
He was just...
I'm torn. I don't know what to do.
I thought he was just looking for who to tip.
That could be. But I don't think those guys tip.
Yeah, that might be it. Well, for them, at that level and that amount of money, that's a brokerage fee. is what they
it's
call
an
it.
offshore tax deduction.
It's a tip. You and you're working at a restaurant, it's a tip. You're working at a wealth management fund. And I'm managing your wealth just as much as anybody else when I'm bringing you pancakes. Right. Yeah, right. This is my brokerage fee. It's my hedge fund management fee. Yeah, right.
Something.
It's my pancake management fee. 15%.
Yeah, something here. So anyway, the other story that I think is worth noting and not to forget, I sent you a little screenshot on CNN. Word ban at CDC includes vulnerable fetus transgender, entitlement, diversity, evidence-based and science-based. You're not allowed to use those 7 words. It's a George Carlin routine. And you're not allowed to use those 7 words when you're doing budgeting.
Okay. Well, you should be using numbers.
God forbid science-based or evidence-based information gets out there. Because, see, that might lead to studies about what gun violence does.
Oh, right. Well, or anything.
On fetuses.
That's what science is about.
If you shoot pregnant women, you can't do any of this
That
stuff.
happens. That we get those stories quite a lot, and very frequently done by accident. And I don't know. They don't want to hear about those.
Right, exactly.
Science.
So, that story is out there, too. All in all, it's the week before the holidays, and the economy seems to be doing well, and the stores are busy, and online sales are brisk.
Thanks to me.
And it's still semi-depressing because the media still hasn't come to terms with how to deal with Trump. I guess I get it when they talk about this tax bill passing, getting the final votes tomorrow, being signed by Trump as a huge win for Trump. I think what they mean is politically it's a win. I think what they mean is wrong because it's going to be a political loser for them, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. NBC, Wall Street Journal had a poll out yesterday on a lot of this stuff. But the other side of the coin is that you could argue it really is a win because basically the people who are going to be enriched are folks like Bob Corker and Donald Trump and his kids, and so he got what he wanted.
Yes,
he wants
true.
to steal money from the government, and this allows him to do it more.
The big problem, of course, is that if you just read what they're writing in your default mode, and I don't know who's left in default mode at this point. Maybe this is on us, but if you just read it in the default way in which we're used to reading the newspaper, it sounds like there's been like a policy implemented that's supposed to do something, and all that's really happened is for instance, I don't know, is Ocean's 11 a win?
Well, in a way, the way it's described on Twitter, is vote coming tomorrow, big win for Trump or big win for Republicans, and that's it. And there is no story that goes with it, just that headline.
Oh.
Now, if you look a little bit more, you can find other stuff. For example, in the New York Times today, champion of the little guy, Trump's actions tell another story. That's a pretty good headline.
Oh, okay. There's a question mark in there. All right.
Yeah, and in fact, it is another story. So if you want to call yourself a populist, you have to stick up for the little guy. But that really is not happening. Now, the tax bill could ultimately make a political difference, the Times says. Millions of middle-class taxpayers are likely to see the taxes go up, though the typical middle-class taxpayer might see or would see a tax cut next year. And the structure of the tax cut tends to favor owners of businesses over drawers of paychecks. That is to say, the bosses get a better break than the workers. While the tax cuts for corporations would be permanent, those for individuals carry an expiration date. Special interests preserve numerous tax breaks and carved out new ones. And so Trump continues to lie about it and say it hurts the wealthy, which is, of course, not true. And since we've never seen his taxes, we really don't know for certain how it would affect him, although one can speculate and get a pretty good idea that it helps him a lot, particularly in terms of moving his wealth to his kids.
Yes, probably so. Although I do hear he's less wealthy than he says.
Yeah, in filings, it's more, he claimed billions, and it's more like 600, 700 million. Now, it may just be that his businesses are tanking because everybody hates him.
That'd be good.
That's entirely possible.
That, sure.
There's other stories out there in terms.
Oops, I can't hear you now. Oh my! Oh, you know what? It sounds like there's like. Oh, there you are. Okay, some fantastic noises from Skype, but
I heard him. They're really pretty. They're like little nice space noises.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like I've been abducted and saved in the nick of time as the medical equipment came out. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. So the Monkey Cage blog, for example, looking at the past, has why 41% of white millennials voted for Trump. I'll give Armando one guess.
He's taking it now. Why are we even mentioning this? All right.
Why? Two popular explanations have emerged post-election. One, economic anxiety, and two, racial resentment. Okay, class, you have 15 seconds to pick the proper choice.
The Jeopardy music is copyrighted, but Humpty Dum 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 Doo. Okay, yes.
There's a hybrid explanation from the Gen Forward survey. First, white millennial Trump voters were likely to believe in something we call white vulnerability. The perception that whites, through no fault of their own, remember they're all victims, are losing ground to other groups. Second, racial resentment was the primary driver of white vulnerability, even when accounting for income, education level, or employment. And so basically the answer is racism.
Okay.
When we control for a number of other factors that might lead white millennials to vote for Trump, such as racial resentment, partisanship, ideology, living in the South, gender, and employment status, the largest predictor of voting for Trump is the sense of white vulnerability. White millennials who scored high on the white vulnerability scale were 74% more likely to vote for Trump than those at the bottom of the scale. And then they talk about what leads to that. And they say, contrary to what some have suggested, white millennial Trump voters were not in more economically precarious situations than non-Trump voters. Fully 86% of them reported being employed, a rate similar to non-Trump voters. They were 14% less likely to be low income than white voters who did not support Trump. Employment and income were not significantly related to the sense of white vulnerability. What was? Racial resentment.
Yeah.
So they go through it fairly clearly.
That's good.
That's my lead story on the Pundit Roundup in terms of finding it. But I thought that was an important factor because maybe we can stop talking about it. Somebody was on Twitter the other day complaining about yet another let's go ask Donald Trump voters if they're still Donald Trump voters.
Yeah, I did see it.
Yeah, and people get sick of that. And her response was, can we please just have one interview of a solid Hillary voter? I will dress like a coal miner if it helps you.
That may be what it takes to get interviewed. Right. I did see somebody had a good line about, if you just want to interview somebody, with mandolin music playing while he's cutting wood, you can talk to my dad. He'll tell you about union organizing and how much he hates Trump.
Right. Meanwhile, Ron Brownstein points to the new Wall Street Journal poll that came out on Sunday, The Trump Effect. The NBC Wall Street Journal poll shows Democrats have a 48-point lead with millennials and a 32-point lead with college or more white women in 2018 congressional ballot test. The millennials will surpass boomers among eligible voters in 2018, and will more vote in midterms than usual? Well, so far they have.
Okay, so far.
The thing about millennials is they happen to be very politically engaged.
Or else.
So this is from the Wall Street Journal, the actual story itself, but I'm going to give you some highlights from that poll, which were kindly put together by Mark Murray and from NBC. I like Mark. He's a very good, solid analyst, and I like to follow his tweets. And let's go to exactly what he said as soon as I find it. The poll shows that Dems hold the biggest lead in congressional preference since 2008. So,
okay.
NBC News, Wall Street Journal poll on whom voters prefer to control Congress, Dems 50, GOP 39. That's the first time since September 2008 when Dems have hit 50% and have been in double digits in this question in the poll.
Okay.
It's a dual poll that's run by a Republican and Democratic pollster. It tends to be right in the middle. That's probably the most solid public media poll available. Pew, I don't consider a media poll. They do their own polling. But between the two of them, very solid. And NBC doesn't lean very much one way or the other. NBC Wall Street Journal poll also shows Dems with the intensity edge, with 59% of Dem voters having a high level of interest in next year's elections versus 49% of GOP voters.
I see. Did someone copyright enthusiasm?
Yeah.
Okay.
We win. Additionally, 62% of Clinton voters have a high level of interest in the midterms versus 50% of Trump voters. And the poll, conducted after Dems win in Alabama, has Trump's job approval rating at 41, which is up 3 points from October. Here's an important point. He could, people have said, gee, I wonder if this 33, 34 is a floor. He doesn't fall below that because his rabid, in a medical sense, voters will never desert him. But actually, it ought to be looked at as a ceiling, and not just the ceiling, but when you dig behind the numbers, it's not what you might call a strong 41%.
Okay.
Okay. Why? Strongly disapprove is at 48%, and that outnumbers strongly approve, which is 24%, by 2 to 1.
Okay. That's good.
Right. So if 48% strongly disapprove, they're not voting for you.
That's true.
If you're already at 48%, without even having an election, without campaigning, that is, without a campaign, that's a bad position to be in.
You don't want to be.
Literally half the country already hates you. And they're not changing. Those people are not going to change their mind. The others can be recruited to hate you.
That's true.
Right?
If they can't change their
minds. Half the
minds.
country that hates you, another quarter of the country that can be recruited to hate you, and then you got some supporters.
Well, that is probably a weak position. Where I would think that there would be some sort of newspaper profiles then of these 48%.
You'd think. You can go find them. I guess my point is, but Trump gained 2 points in the last poll. You're not looking at the numbers. It doesn't matter. And you keep saying it doesn't matter that he's 33, 34 because he's got his core people supporting him. I'm saying it doesn't matter that he's at 41 because most people are going to turn out to hate him in the end.
Okay. Do I keep saying that?
No.
Oh.
People.
People. Gotcha.
You people.
Where?
So the Democrats have an 11-point advantage on the generic ballot, and you'd think, maybe this is an outlier poll. That's the exact average in the Real Clear Politics. Some polls have it as high as 15.
Yeah, well, we've heard it. We've heard it plenty. I don't think anybody who listens to your reports thinks that's an outlier.
Right, but
some other jerk
running 7 or 8, and 7 or 8 is about the number you'd think the Democrats need in order to take Congress. The average was 7 or 8. Now the average is 11.
All right.
So it's going in the wrong direction for Trump. And there's also a GOP erosion in GOP-held districts. This is all from Mark Murray tweeting about this. So I'm going to I'm going to give you his little string there where you can find all this stuff. More significantly, there's a GOP erosion in GOP-held districts, and let me give you the exact tweet. The fun thing about the show is doing it on the fly.
Yes.
There we go.
I see it now.
I'll talk to my producer about that. So maybe more significantly, there's a GOP erosion in GOP-held districts. The registered voters in a GOP congressional district in 2010 were plus 15 for the Republicans. So if it's a red district, they were red by a lot. In 2014, it was plus 18. As recently as April 2017, it was plus 13. And now it's plus 8.
Okay.
About half of what it was. Whereas in the Democratic districts, registered voters in Democratic congressional districts, back in 2010, it was a plus 17 when the Republicans were plus 15 back in 2010. And we're looking at the midterms.
Yes,
okay 2014, the registered voters in GOP districts were plus 18, and the Democrats were plus 23. So, in other words, what that shows is that there was a slight advantage, but it was only slight. It was 2 points in 2010, and 2014, 4 years later, it was a 5-point the Democratic lead within their own districts compared to the other sides within their own districts. And that wasn't enough really to help the Democrats very much when it came to election time. 5 wasn't enough. Now it's plus 8 for the Republicans and plus 32 for the Democrats.
That's
Set a 24-point lead as opposed to a 5 or a 7-point lead, or a 2-point lead, which is what it was. So the intensity on the side of the Democrats is pretty darn high.
All right. I guess, all right. That helps figure out exactly what it says. Get a little lost in the numbers there. Those are some odd measures. We don't usually talk about those.
Well, it's a look at your own supporters within your own areas.
You. That makes some sense now.
No, it's an enthusiasm measure.
Oh, all right. Well, I have that.
Enthusiasm.
That's the measure.
Okay, so Republican enthusiasm within their own districts is +8, and Democratic enthusiasm within their own districts is +32.
That's the thing. Okay.
And historically, that's a much, much larger gap than we saw in the last 2 midterms.
32. Okay.
Right. So every part about this poll says that if you don't like Trump, you hate, despise, loathe, abhor Trump. And if you like Trump, some of it is strong, but most of it is weak.
Yeah, if you like Trump and you work at Carrier or in a coal mine, you might be starting to get different ideas.
What else? There's a discussion about a speech about national security. When it comes to foreign policy in terms of what he says, generally through his advisors, who you can't believe because he's going to change his mind the next day anyway.
Right. Or Twitter.
Then it's pretty conventional Republican policy. And when it comes to appointing judges, it's maybe a little bit more conservative than normal, but within the range of conventional Republican policy. I mention these things because you'll see lots of stories about Jay Koss just had one, but there'll be others. I'm an ever-Trumper. I'm mildly pleased by some of the things he's done.
Okay.
But on the whole, I can't tolerate him because of all the, ridiculous, he's not qualified for the job stuff.
Oh.
Well, how do you even get the, I'm pleasantly surprised because he's conventional in a lot of different ways.
Okay. Oh, like taxes. Is he happy about the tax cut? That might be it.
Yeah, well, that's a Republican thing.
True. They're going to do that with or without him. I guess that explains it. All right. Well, we'll take our short break and be right back. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show on Netroots Radio. We are still here with Greg Dworkin, continuing our segment into part 2 of today's show. All right, we left off, I don't know, what the hell were we saying? Where were we in all this?
Well, let me move to a different direction, then you don't have to remember. It's just so much easier.
Just go back and rewind and listen to the show. Someone can tweet me later and tell me what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking about foreign policy and Trump.
Right, but, yes. He doesn't have one.
He really doesn't have one. He he likes torturing people, so he hasn't fired Rex Tillerson, even though he's told everybody not to pay any attention to him. We don't.
All right, yeah.
And whenever Nikki Haley says something, he just ignores her and pretends she doesn't exist altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess he's practiced at that.
Right.
So foreign policy.
Now, to go in a separate direction here, my concluding piece here, and I'll do this in honor of the recent Sandy Hook memorial 5 years later. This is from USA Today by Stephen Strauss, and it's called Concealed Carry Reciprocity Isn't Enough. What about drugs, driving, and sex? We need some reciprocity on those things. He says left-wing radicals, like you and me, David,
I see.
Are upset that the Republican-controlled House recently passed the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act of 2017, and as a parenthetical aside, the House often passes that stuff and it dies in the Senate. We'll see what happens this time. Mm-hmm. It is now up to the Senate to decide whether to go along. The proposed act says that if you're allowed to carry a concealed gun in your home state, you can do it in any of the other 49 states. Right? That seems simple enough.
Well, that's the theory, yes.
Right? To better understand how this works, let's look at two states, Mississippi and New York. If you're from Mississippi, where no special permit is needed for concealed carry, you'd legally be able to carry your concealed gun in New York without worrying about any of New York's gun permit requirements. After all, the state has some of our country's toughest permit laws for concealed carry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it in New York City when you walk around with guns in your pocket. Mississippi's death rate from guns is almost 4 times as high as New York, so you might wonder, is this a good idea? Well, we all know, per the National Rifle Association, that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Now, if we've agreed this isn't about guns but about people, your next logical question is, since the people of Mississippi kill each other at a much higher rate than New Yorkers, why is it a good idea to let them walk around New York with concealed weapons?
Or why let them into New York at all?
But if you're asking that question, it just shows what a bigoted member of the coastal elite you are,
unfairly
stereotyping the people from high murder rate states like Mississippi.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
There's another significant potential benefit from this proposed act. Allowing all these armed people from places like Mississippi to bring their concealed weapons to places like New York could raise New York's murder rate, thereby making Mississippi's high murder rate much less embarrassing.
Oh, well. Yes, if you
see, Republicans really do care about equality of outcomes.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a good idea. I like to hang out with murderers because they look so much better.
Right. If the GOP can't make places like Mississippi, where it controls the government, safer, it can instead equalize things by trying to make places like New York, dominated by the Democratic Party, less safe.
There you go. And they usually claim that's the case anyway.
Right. My only criticism of the act, the author says, is it doesn't go far enough. If it's too much of a burden to know the gun control laws of a state you're visiting, why should you know the laws pertaining to things like age of consent for sex, driving rules, prostitution, or drug use? The GOP should rewrite the proposed act as a general reciprocity act, specifying that whatever state you visit, only the laws of your home state apply to you. So, sometimes some states only let you drive 60, others do it 75. Yeah. I say whatever state you're driving in, you should obey the speed limit and driving laws of the state you're from. Right? And in Massachusetts, pot's legal for recreational use, while in Alabama, pot's illegal. So if you're from Massachusetts visiting Alabama, you should be able to smoke pot and deal a little on the side, too.
Sure.
Right?
And you
Brothels are legal in Nevada, but illegal in Mississippi. So if you're from Nevada, you should be able to set up pop-up bordello in Mississippi without fear of persecution or prosecution.
Yes.
The great advantage to the approach I'm suggesting is with everyone driving at different speeds, obeying different drug laws, and on, reciprocal concealed carry of guns will seem like no big deal.
That's true, and seem more necessary than ever.
Yeah, because, if not that, then why is it so special?
Because Constitution, I think, is the usual argument.
It's one of Roy Moore's favorite amendments, so, I guess it stays, right?
Yes.
He only likes the first 10.
Right, well, he likes the younger amendments.
That's probably what it is, too.
No, but they'd be the older amendments, wouldn't they?
And he likes younger ones. I think that totally frames it correctly.
Maybe he's just fixated on the numbers. That must be it. If they're under 10, I like them.
Right. I think The Onion had it right. It had a headline along the lines of, after losing the election, Roy Moore gets to spend time with other people's children.
Well, yes, sure. And I'd be thinking about leaving the state if I lived there.
Well, reciprocity.
Yes. Oh, that's true. Oh, well, he's
right. So it doesn't matter because he can come to your state and do the same things he does where he is.
That's true. And in them days, why only have reciprocity for current law when you could have it for previous alleged mores?
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
Besides, in the old days, 3/5 of a person, and on the other side of the coin, women couldn't vote. So let's just have reciprocity. Why don't we just do it the way I wish it used to be when America was great?
Yeah. We couldn't get reciprocity. All right. Well, why not? That was the last time he really appreciated America.
Absolutely. Anyway, so, it was a relatively quiet weekend, considering that some days are just like too many stories to even get to.
Yes.
I suppose that's because the holidays are coming and people are busy. Nonetheless, that's the summary as it is, so that'll get you at least started today. This is Greg Dworkin. Oh, you know what I should do before telling you who I am, just in case you forgot?
Yes.
I do that all the time.
I don't know who this is, but tell me something.
What's your holiday schedule?
I
should ask.
This is now me telling you something?
Yeah.
This is a raw deal. I thought I was going to get the story out of this.
First of all, who are you? And secondly, what are you doing with your time?
Hi, where am I? And I don't know. Well, I think we're going to go ahead with a regular schedule this week. It's not holiday week. There's no holidays involved in this, and I don't care how many days you think Christmas has.
Monday's a holiday, so what about next week?
But there is Hanukkah going on, but, we work through that. Next Monday, I'm pretty sure we will not be live. Whether or not I can prepare something brand new and exciting for the holiday week next week. Certainly Monday will be off the air, so you don't have to call me. How's that?
Okay.
And afterwards, that's a good question. Will I be back in place on Tuesday? You know what? I have to check on that. I have to ask the real boss.
Well, but you're saying it is possible that there'll be tape shows next week and there'll be no live show at all.
It is entirely possible, it depends how productive I am on it this week. I don't think we're going to make it all the way through the week. Recording 5 shows ahead of time is quite a task.
Well, 4, because there's no show on Monday.
Right. Well, but I mean, even so, even if we were to record something for Monday, I don't know if people even are allowed to use radios on Christmas. What's the rule on that? Is there? It's not like they don't do it like no electronics, like Shabbat or anything, right? Okay.
Hey, it's a great question. I'll have to ask my rabbi.
Yes. Well, we'll check in on it. I think if they light those Christmas trees the day before Christmas and just leave them lit, it's okay.
So anyway, just let me know, because I need to know what days to call in and what days not.
Yes, Monday, no.
Maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday.
I'll have somebody climb down your chimney and leave you a note.
I'll have some milk and cookies for you.
If the cookies are gone, no show.
Right, exactly right. Anyway, Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman. I'm pretty sure I can remember which one is which. Take care, and I will definitely talk to you this Wednesday, because this week is like a normal week.
Right, there's no excuse.
Normal is a word that one can use in this context.
Right. Ho, ho, ho.
I'll see you then. Take care.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for getting us started, Greg. Appreciate it, and we'll carry on from this point. A nice space hang-up sound there. I like that. And, boy, Skype, you're doing yourselves proud with these fantastic new sound effects. All right. Gun reciprocity. That's a good question about whether I wonder whether the Senate would even take the bill up. It does, they do put it that way and say it's the Senate's responsibility to decide whether or not it'll agree with the House. I am not certain. One of the things the Senate likes to do with bills like this is nothing and simply never pick it up at all, even though, I don't know whether they care to do that or whether they think the NRA demands it. Or what, but I suspect that there are enough people in the Senate who just think it's a bad idea generally, or who think I haven't gotten paid enough by the NRA to go through with this, and I can say you can have that next year if we're reelected or if you give us enough money, so they may hijack the bill at this point. I did have another gun story that made my list because of its weirdness. I think the gun policy stuff we're all caught up on, but just a dumb gun fail story that it caught my eye via Twitter just because of a recent discussion that I had, which is a routine one for someone like me. Who is constantly monitoring these things. Oh, somebody's going to have the publication is going to have a fight with me about my ad blocker. You know what? The ad blocker is getting to be more trouble than it's worth. I originally put the ad blocker on, not because I hate ads, I don't care, but because so many of them began with auto playing video and would ruin the show or just give me a headache. And at somebody's suggestion, I installed an ad blocker. And for the purposes of making the show quieter in the background, it's been good. And I'll keep it for that reason. But now so many news sites that have useless ads that, quite frankly, I'd never click on. I have no interest in any of the things they're showing me. And very often, they're just promos for other stories also promoted in other ways on the same page. But now these news sites get very upset. We see you're using an ad blocker. Please consider turning off your ad blocker. And then coming back, and my ad blocker gives me the opportunity to turn off ad blocker, but only for the exact page that I want to see. and I usually will agree to do that. But it's a big pain in the neck, and I don't know, and it creates an annoyance that I really wasn't looking for. But we'll see. We'll try it again and see if let's see. All right, enabled on this site, block element. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what? My ad blocker doesn't even give me that option anymore. So that's pretty annoying. Do I really care about newser.com enough to turn off the ad blocker? I'm not sure. Oops, I closed the story I didn't mean to. It made me do that. That was very annoying. All right, well, let's go back and read it out of the pocket. Just like I said, a routine story, but I had a discussion recently with somebody. It was sort of an accidental discussion. I got tagged in a discussion that I wasn't having. You know how that happens very often on Twitter. And let's see, the situation was we had a gun enthusiast and a gun safety enthusiast having an argument about carrying your guns everywhere, and that more guns meant more trouble, more shootings, more accidents, etc. And we actually still found out in the wild a person who was willing to offer the argument of, well, now if the presence of guns is really the problem for the number of shootings that we have, how come this is the case? You know where people never get shot? Oh my God, you're not going to say it, are you? Yeah, you know what? No one ever gets shot at a gun shop. But of course, those of you who have followed Gunfail know that people get shot at gun shops all the time. And also, it happens a lot because gun shops very frequently have their own gun ranges, and people get shot at gun ranges all the time too. But just straight gun shops with no range, people get shot. People, you know what? The worst thing is people get shot outside of those gun shops and nearby those gun shops without ever setting foot in those gun shops. That's the real problem. And we have just such a story today. This one from where? I don't know. Texas. There we are. Cypress, Texas. A 36-year-old man walking toward a gun range. He wasn't even in the gun range. Walking toward a gun range, fatally shot Tuesday. Now, very often we hear stories about outdoor gun ranges where somebody has done something dumb and fired a bullet that escapes past the berms meant to contain the bullets that miss their targets, although sometimes those berms are there for bullets that do hit their targets and just pass through. At any rate, very often the outdoor ranges cause a lot of problems, but this was not one. This was an indoor range. And we know this because it says that the 36-year-old man walking toward the gun range was fatally shot Tuesday before he stepped inside. That's how we know there was an inside. Not that this guy ever saw it. Joshua Cummings, maybe he's a frequent patron of the Hot Wells shooting range near Cypress, Texas, and had already been inside frequently and knew the environs very well. But if he was anticipating his very first visit there, well, he was sorely disappointed because he was killed dead in the parking lot before ever stepping foot into the range, at least that day. Shortly after 9 a.m., which is a terrible time to get shot with a high-powered rifle in the parking lot of the gun range you're going to visit. But that's what happened when such a rifle, quote, accidentally discharged inside. According to KHOU, police say a gun range employee in his early 20s, who are usually experts, of course, that's why we have them work there. A gun range employee in his early 20s had been cleaning a high-caliber hunting rifle when a bullet exited the chamber. How do you like that? A bullet exited the chamber. See you later, everybody. It's time for me to leave the chamber. I'll be just heading down the hallway here for a spot of tea and a murder. But what do you mean? It's exited the chamber. A bullet was fired. The guy pulled the trigger and shot somebody to death. Just say it. So the bullet, a bullet exited the chamber. The bullet went through a wall of the small range house and struck Cummings, a Harris County Sheriff's deputy tells KTRK. I guess whatever this newser site is, all they do is they tell you what was on 2 or 3 different television channels. That's all I do. So I guess I shouldn't be too worried about it. But it actually comes up quite a lot. And it's a short thing. It's 2 paragraphs. And there are 3 other news sites cited here. So at least they provide links. Anyway, he didn't die in the parking lot. He was flown to a nearby hospital in a helicopter at about, let's go like something like $85,000, by the way, to fly somebody in a helicopter to the hospital, only to have him later die. That'll stick the family with a nice bill with which they will get no help under Trump care. But yeehaw. A sheriff's spokesman said homicide detectives are questioning employees, but the shooting appears to be accidental. There are no such things as accidents, this other person told me as well. No one ever gets shot at a gun shop. Well, these 25 people did. Can you answer me that? Well, that's all negligence. It's you see. Well, so what? I mean, do they get to rise from the grave now? It's negligence instead of an accident. Well, we need to hold those people accountable. Whole other discussion. Let's talk a little bit, never mind. The guy walked away. He wasn't ready to have the discussion. But let's talk about whether or not people get held accountable. We worship our guns in this country, and what ends up happening is, generally speaking, you accidentally shoot somebody to death, but if you say, but I did it in service of this gun. I was trying to clean this high-powered hunting rifle, and I'm a gun range employee, and I love guns, and the Constitution says I get to have them. So therefore, what? I'm sorry, it was an accident. All of a sudden, accidents exist, and we can't punish people for accidents. And so that's that. Well, we've told this story before. There's no such thing as an accident. All things like this are actually negligence and totally preventable. That's what people say when they want to dismiss the issue. And they say it right up until the police pull up outside of their house and want to know, why their children have holes in their heads and the guns have been fired. Does anybody ever come out and say, I don't know what happened. I was making breakfast and my 3-year-old was negligent and found my, or does anybody ever come out and say, I was negligent, I left the gun there? They usually just say, if anything, well, yeah, that's where I keep my gun, but it was an accident. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy. That's all the newspapers ever say. The police reports, oh, it's a terrible tragedy, and haven't the parents been punished enough? They've lost their child. And perhaps that's, on the moral scales, true, but then don't tell me that we need to punish people and hold them accountable for their negligence if you don't really mean it. But, on an ad hoc basis, we keep excusing these things one at a time. But every time, and almost every time anyway, until, by the way, you find typically a family of color has had this accident. And then somebody's got to go to prison, you see, conveniently enough. But we've heard that theme. By the way, Twitter has been very active in the last couple of weeks with that meme on the marijuana front. For some reason, that's heating up my Twitter feed, is comparisons between mostly people of color getting locked up for having, the faint scent of marijuana used by somebody else 4 days ago on them when they're driving as a passenger in a car somewhere or riding a train or God knows what. And other people like, I'm doing like hot marijuana oil yoga for $1 million a year, and it's the greatest thing in the world. And what a brilliant entrepreneur who came up with this. I saw one yesterday about a kid arrested for selling, quote, pot-laced treats, which in other places we, of course, now refer to as the uptown moniker of edibles. And it was side by side with the story of this 57-year-old grandmother made $1 million, is becoming a millionaire entrepreneur selling pot gummies. That's okay, hilarious. But anyway, just an interesting parallel with the gun story there. At any rate, here is the inevitable paragraph out of the two. We're stretching the story out quite a bit. A sheriff's spokesman says homicide detectives are questioning employees, but the shooting appears to be accidental per NBC5. So that's KHOU, KTRK, and NBC5 all on the scene. It's just a terrible tragedy, a range employee tells KTRK, which identifies Cummings as a father. So you know it's bad. That's how you know killing him was a bad thing. He's a father, for God's sake. And his Twitter bio probably also said Christian, Trump supporter, and had an eagle in it. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. I couldn't tell you. Just guessing. We simply do not have the words to express the sorrow in our hearts, adds Hot Wells in a statement. That would be the shooting range. I don't know if there's a place around there that has Hot Wells that they named it after, or what. But anyway, that's the name of the company. For 44 years, he says, we have operated this facility accident-free. I have my doubts about that. Yet today we are shaken by tragedy. The range said it wouldn't comment on the accident details until after an investigation is complete. A man discussing church shootings accidentally shot his wife in a church, they add, thankfully, parenthetically, with a link to that very dumb story. I don't know if we discussed that one, but it certainly made the rounds on Twitter back a couple weeks ago when that one happened. But also not the only one of those. Anyway, just interesting. Obviously, we mourn the loss of this Joshua Cummings on his way to the gun range. If only the man on the way to the gun range had been armed, then I suppose he could have prevented this terrible tragedy by firing very quickly through the hole as the bullet was on its way out. He could have slipped his bullet in and killed the range worker who was so evil and negligent. But why bother with something like that? Because truthfully, after all, it was just an accident and it could happen to anybody, including somebody who's trained to clean and repair guns, that you would just do something natural like forgetting that there could be a bullet in the chamber. It happens all the time. And in catching up with gun fail stories from a few months ago and trying to document them along the way, I just recently read the story of a guy who killed himself with a pistol that he was trying to prove to everyone was safe. Enough with this, by the way, guys. The people who have their guns and I'll show you the gun is safe by putting it to my own head and pulling the trigger. Now, would I do this if there was a bullet in the chamber and I didn't know about it? You might, Rabbit. You might. And they do. And just in this particular story, I had read that the surviving spouse in this case had said that this guy was really something of an expert with his guns. He shot his guns every day and was really into his guns. And yet he was insistent with whoever he was with at the time that this gun is safe. I will take the magazine out. And you know what? Not only does that mean it's unloaded, but this gun won't fire if the magazine is out. Now, I'm not able to tell from the details that were passed along in the story whether he meant that he thought that if a magazine was out of the gun, that a gun was empty, and so therefore it would not fire because it could not fire, or whether he thought he was handling a weapon that had some mechanism. And I don't know if I'm not an expert. I'm not aware of whether or not there is a semi-automatic weapon in circulation which literally will not allow you to depress the trigger if the magazine is not inserted. And I doubt very much that there is one, although if there is one, everybody should make it like that. But why? Because, well, to get to another major reason for a lot of gun fails, particularly gun cleaning gun fail, most of these semi-automatic pistols on the market, and probably everything else too, the rifles, etc., when you want to take it apart for cleaning, pardon me, and give it a really thorough cleaning, I mean, the idea is you, of course, take out the magazine. You would then eject any rounds that were chambered because, once again, we remind everybody, semi-automatic weapons, simply removing the magazine, that removes the reserve of additional ammunition from the weapon, but it doesn't take the one bullet which may have been chambered out with it. If it's in the chamber, it's no longer in the magazine. You take the magazine out, fine, but the magazine is only responsible for removing the rounds that are in the magazine. If it's not anywhere, if it's not in the magazine anymore, I got nothing to do with it. So if it's in, the idea is you're supposed to take out the magazine, open and check the chamber, eject whatever might be in there, check it, inspect it visually, stick your finger in there, make sure that there isn't something partway somehow stuck in there, and then you can take the gun apart. And the reason you need to check to see that there's nothing in the chamber is that most of these semi-automatic weapons, in order to take it apart, you got to move the mechanisms inside, move the machine parts out of the way so that you can break the gun apart. By the way, welcome to the Leaf Blower Monday portion of our show. I guess they've decided now would be a great time to clean up the leaves outside of the Kagro in the Morning World headquarters studios with loud equipment. Hopefully that doesn't come through too badly on the live feed. But at any rate, in order to break these guns apart and clean them, you got to pull the trigger, which seems like bad design if you think about it. And I don't know if there's really any way around it, given how guns work and how they're built. But they figured it was going to be okay because if you pull the trigger when there's no bullets in there, no rounds, no cartridges, depending on how you want to refer to your various parts of the weapon and the ammunition, you want to do things right. Then there's no problem. As long as there's no ammunition in there, it literally can't fire a bullet out. But of course, the firing mechanism can move and can be triggered. And then if there is a round in the way of the firing mechanism, guess what's going to happen? The bullet's going to come out. So this guy was not expert enough to be able to figure that out, despite the fact that he shot his guns daily. So I don't know what to tell you about that one, but it does happen fairly frequently. People shoot themselves in the thighs, in the hands, and on occasion in the head to prove that it can't happen. And yet it does. And really, honestly, I don't know why anybody would. I guess it's drama that they're looking for because, you know, I could prove to you that a gun is or isn't loaded by pointing it at the ground and squeezing the trigger, right? Or I could do it pointing it at my head. And by the way, yes, the person who shot themselves and their wife accidentally during the discussion in church about carrying concealed weapons in church was likewise looking to prove that his gun was not loaded. And guess what? He was wrong, but at least he was in the right spot to seek forgiveness, I suppose. There are two great places to shoot yourself, apparently. In the hospital, and that happens quite a lot, or right outside the hospital, and in church, so you can seek forgiveness and ask the people you accidentally shot to give you their blessings so that you can go straight on up to heaven if you bleed out on your way to your $85,000 helicopter ride. Thanks very much. All right, we'll continue with more important stories, I'm sure, after this break. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I should just keep the music playing through the whole thing so maybe you'll hear less leaf blowing. And you know what I'm really concerned about here? The truth is I'm worried that they're blowing the leaves into my yard. So why aren't you cleaning the ones out of my yard and then the common area? But I guess all they're contracted to do is remove the leaves from the common area, and blowing them into my yard counts as removing them from the common area, I guess. All right. Well, we'll do without the background music at the moment, even though I think that would cover things up. I think you should enjoy the same ambiance that I have. All right, well, let's see. What should we catch up on first? The president is doing a little bit of rage tweeting this morning. I think he's just a little bit upset about the outcome of the Alabama Senate race, trying to remind everybody how many special elections the Republicans have, in fact, won in the last year. He put the number at 5-0 was the record that he claimed for himself, but it's at least 5-1. We see one of the Democrats elected in such a special election reminding him, I'm here. But not a great deal of rage tweeting so far this morning, so not so bad. And, at least we're up to speed on things. And he was in, Trump was in, apparently in, where was he? Camp David for the weekend. I don't know how good the cell phone reception is up there, and I imagine they can do something to make it work a little bit better. But I don't think his phone was working all that well. And so there was no weekend rage tweeting, and so people got a restful weekend out of it. He was quiet for the most part. He had no idea why he was at Camp David. I don't think nothing happens at Camp David, and he doesn't like it very much. And I think he's getting to know that that's where they stick him when they don't want him on Twitter for the weekend, and I guess it was just too dangerous a weekend for him to be blabbing. Next weekend, they won't have that much control over him, but we'll take a measure of what kind of family man he is if he is tweeting up a storm during the Christmas break rather than, say watching Barron unwrap his presents. Then we will stand by and judge him. Speaking of the special elections, Kate Sherrill reminds us here that Roy Moore still hasn't conceded. I don't know that that affects anything, but it just makes us think he's a bigger jerk than we used to think. She's sent me Josh Douglas's tweet on the subject. Joshua A. Douglas, in case you're looking around. He's a election law and voting rights professor at the University of Kentucky, which is not where the race was held, but it's closer to where the race that was held than I am, and so he must have a better view from where he is. He says, Roy Moore still hasn't conceded. It's been 6 days since the election, and the margin of victory remains at an insurmountable 1.5%. Usually, state law either doesn't permit or very severely restricts the insistence on recounts after sometimes 0.5%, sometimes, depending on the size of the state, 1%. I don't think anybody permits a state-paid 1.5% difference recount, but basically it's just sounding like he's just standing around refusing to concede, hoping that there'll be some sort of a miracle or some sort of accusation of voter fraud. I know a lot of the wingnuts are out there trying as hard as they can to circulate rumors that the only reason that Doug Jones won was because they were busing people in from other states to vote illegally, which, of course, that doesn't work that way. You get there and you say, hi, I'm here to vote, and they say, where do you live? And you pretend. If you just say Alabama, that doesn't really work. I suppose they could hook you up with a fake address of some kind ahead of time, or a phone book, and you could just pick an address out of there, and they say either that's not this precinct, or you're not registered, or can you prove to me that you are that person? No. Well, then here's a ballot anyway. It doesn't go like that. But they seem stuck on the idea, so they're continuing to circulate that rumor. Let's see. The rest of Josh Douglas's tweet here that Kate sent us says he's following Trump's promise playbook had he lost. He's following Trump's promised playbook had he lost. These kinds of actions needlessly sow doubt about the legitimacy of our elections. Oh, I see. It's the playbook that Trump would have used had he lost the election, which he did, by the way, depending on what you're counting. Even if you're counting electoral votes, I'm not 100% sure that he really should have won that election. But okay, we are back on track here. Okay, let's see. Where are we in terms of other people's reminders of good issues for that? Here's something we could address. Just let's see who's sent us this one with this new feature on Twitter where you get to put in a giant long identifying name, which doesn't have anything to do with the address at which we find you on Twitter. It's becoming more and more difficult to tell exactly who is who's tweeting what at me and what I should call you. What do we have here? Our Twitter handle here is Death to the Filth. If you were trying to find out who is tweeting this to me, Alexis it says here, drags you for filth. So I never know what to call people. Do I call them only when it's clear that this is your real name versus this is your Twitter handle? Do I know what to do with this? Okay, Alexis had a quick question. I know it's quick because it says it right here, even though it takes 2 tweets to get the question out. It's still quick, right? And this is sort of addressed to all the, or a couple of the podcasts that she listens to here that I guess anybody can answer. I don't know if I can answer this one, so we'll see whether the Professional Left podcast does any better with this one. Let's see. Is it possible that the reason the GOP has been seeming so unconcerned about the 2018 election wave is because they know Putin has their back and will be screwing with the voter rolls again? It's not that I can't answer it. It's that I don't know the real answer. Does anybody? I mean, quite frankly, Alexis, you probably know the answer as well as I do. Yeah, it's possible, and people have supposed as much. I couldn't tell you. I think a lot of them will be swept out of office, and they don't care because, 1, they're rich people as it is. 2, they will have just given themselves a gigantic tax break windfall, and that will help keep them rich. And 3, they weren't doing anything in Congress anyway. For the most part, they didn't hold positions of real power. It was just a giant pain in the ass. And they weren't doing anything with it, I don't know how concerned they really are about losing those jobs. There's a follow-up to it, and we'll discuss it a little bit more. That's not the end of it. Follow-up is the Russians hacked the RNC as well as the DNC. Are Republicans possibly teeing up to bury the Russia probe because Putin has compromat on a bunch of them from that hack and is blackmailing them? That, too, is a distinct possibility. But I think that there's something going on, because we're frequently reminded, on the show, either prompted by tweets of others or a story brings us around to it, we're reminded that the Republicans in Congress, the Republican leadership, Mitch McConnell, in his insistence that that the Obama administration not bring up the issue during the campaign, because if they did, the threat was, I will accuse you of politicizing this issue for partisan advantage during the campaign. For whatever reason, the Obama administration took that threat to mean something and took it seriously and decided not to go ahead. But we also have the story of, you'll recall, the story of Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy and the other Republican leadership folks laughing it up about Kevin McCarthy's line about, I think the Russians pay Trump and Dana Rohrabacher, and everybody laughing. And he says, no, I'm serious. And at any rate, they say, well, serious or not, we'd like to swear you all to secrecy. These stories remind us every once in a while that Republicans knew that something was going on, but they were strangely unconcerned about Russian hacking in and around American elections. Strangely unconcerned in a way that makes us wonder, how do they know? How did they know? Why were they so confident that Russian hacking of American elections wouldn't affect Republican outcomes negatively? If you're hacking American elections, in almost every one of our American elections for high-profile offices, there is both a Democrat and a Republican running. Not all, but in most. And if you're hacking elections, that contest in which there are two contestants. I normally would say contestants, but I had said contest, so I tried to avoid it. But one or the other, or both of them, is going to come out very poorly. And if you're hacking it, well, if you're just hacking elections to undermine elections, you would think that that could undermine outcomes for your party. But apparently they thought that was not the case. For some reason, they were convinced, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and others, convinced that all of this meddling, which they believed was going on but didn't want discussed, was not going to hurt Republicans. And that warrants some inquiry, I think. Whether or not their hack of the RNC worried them about compromat, I don't really know. And to be honest, I don't think that the RNC is going to have a great deal of information about rank and file Republicans, even the ones running for Congress. Very frequently, the national parties really know next to nothing about the people. Believe it or not, you wouldn't think that that would be the case. You have one job. You're supposed to know about those people, but there are a lot of them and very little time. Despite the fact that our elections seem to last forever, the focus at these committees generally does not get down to the level of finding an intimate portrait or storing as much compromising information as possible about each and every congressional candidate on our centralized computers as possible. So an RNC hack would likely not gain you very much information about individual members of Congress, to be honest. So I would say that's probably less likely. Maybe that's what makes, and so there we've probably reached a point where we say, okay, now I can probably offer up some kind of an answer that is clarifying in some way, or at least edifying in some way. So I hope I've done that for you, Alexis. I would think that Republicans who seem unconcerned about 2018 are fatalistic But also, of course, they believe they're going to win because incumbents usually do. And you know what? Incumbents really do usually win, even when they're horrible and you have all kinds of compromising information about them. Well, I guess the fact that Roy Moore is down in Alabama not conceding and only lost by 1.5%, despite the fact that everybody knew he was a child molester, is kind of testament to that. And these guys are holding on, and I don't think they really care that much. And remember also, once again, we have to remind you, they're almost all extraordinarily wealthy people. And the question of whether or not they hang on for another 2 years' worth of jobs that are the biggest headache in the world and that pay about $175,000, which is good money for you and me, but not so much for multimillionaires. I don't think so. I think it's hard for them to care a great deal. They just figure they'll ride it out. And if they don't, they don't. I think they're just fatalistic. But in order to get to that position, you kind of have to believe that you're just going to come out on top all the time anyway. To hold yourself out on the national level as an elected official, a politician, you're a pretty confident person in most cases. And so I think that has more to do with it than thinking that Russia will really ride to their rescue. And I just think they don't care. Anyway, let's move on to a couple of other issues. Oh, more from Kate. What has she got here? Richard Painter now tweeting, this is why some members of Congress have a Mueller problem. It's because they also have a Putin problem. Is this supposed to help establish the connection here? Raw Story has this piece. Let's take a look. Maybe this will help out Alexis with her question, too. Elizabeth Preza, writing for Raw Story, Putin's allies pumped millions into GOP campaigns through proxies thanks to Citizens United. So it could be that. It could be, there is also that, and that's sort of a related question. It might not be that there are Russians who have compromat on them. It might not be that there are Russians who are going to fix their elections, per se, but it could very well be the case that Russian oligarch dollars are going to be laundered massively and pumped into their campaigns. And they figure the power of incumbency plus a lot of money plus outrage fatigue plus nobody knows who the hell I am, but they all are angry at Trump, means with a Republican plus 15 registration advantage in this district, I'll be just fine. And if I'm not, I'm not. Big deal. I think it's a little bit of all of it. What do we have here? Landmark Citizens United case and related campaign finance laws may be facilitating Russia's attempt to subvert U.S. democracy. The Dallas News reports. This would just be basically, I think, straight up, well, why don't we just take our oligarchs' money and give it to Republicans to run their races with? That's illegal, but if we put it into a couple of LLCs, it'll take so long to figure out where the money came from. We'll already all be elected by the time they catch us. And if they do catch us, we'll pretend we didn't know anything about it, try to return the money after the fact, but we'll already be in office. Some of us will get caught. Some of us will get, forced to resign or whatever. But hey, no biggie. It's worth the risk, I think, for most of them. According to an analysis of public campaign finance reports, a group of Russian-linked political donors with ties to Vladimir Putin funnel money to Donald Trump and the GOP through legal campaign contributions that have, thus far, faced little to no scrutiny by the federal government. That could be changing. In September, it was reported that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is investigating 3 donors with ties to Russia who contributed a combined total of $2 million to funds controlled by Trump. And here, the legal versus illegal question becomes a complicated one. I said it was illegal. They said it was legal. What gives? I say it is illegal for a Russian oligarch to say, I will give money to these candidates. And to do it directly would, of course, be illegal and, unnecessary and stupid, because you can do it legally by simply saying, I will give money to Myself LLC. And Myself LLC will make a donation to a PAC. And the PAC will wash the donation further and give it to these candidates. And I don't know any of these candidates personally anyway. They don't make any difference to me. Just here, PAC, have a bunch of money and give it to whoever. You do the targeting like Cambridge Analytica. I'll just provide the money like we did it with the first election. That's basically, I guess, That's all it takes to make it legal. Instead of me giving money, my LLC gives the money, and they give it to a PAC. So there are 2 layers of annoyance to have to file through. That could be changing, it says. Let's see. All the 3 men that Mueller are targeting have financial and business ties to Russian oligarchs who are intricately linked with Putin. As the Dallas News explains, one of those men is Ukrainian-born billionaire. Have we read this name yet? Leonard Blavatnik. Sounds familiar. We might have done him once or twice. Let's see. Oh, yes. He holds dual American and British citizenship. I do believe we have touched on this guy's name before, but only once or twice, I think. And if he's got dual citizenship and one of them's American, then I guess he can give the money. He doesn't even need an LLC. Blavatnik at one time offered political donations on a bipartisan basis, as many businesses do, giving small contributions to both parties from 2009 to 2014. From 2015 to 2016, Blavatnik stopped donating to both political parties and instead contributed $6.35 million to GOP political action committees. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, Blavatnik and 2 other Russian-linked donors began pumping donations to the RNC just as Trump was on the verge of securing the Republican nomination. Since April of last year, Blavatnik has donated $383,000 to the RNC, with $12,700 going to the RNC legal fund. That account paid Trump's legal bills in the Russia investigation until November. Blavatnik also donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund, ABC reports, and you know nothing happens with it. Once the money's in, there's no more accounting necessary for the Trump inauguration fund. By all accounts, Blavatnik is a success story. We'll see about whether he is a success story in my accounting of it, but okay. Having grown up in the USSR, you don't know how lucky you are, he moved to the United States in the 1970s. That was a great time to move. Then returned. Oh, he returned just before the fall of the Soviet Union. How exciting. And amassed a fortune in oil, gas, and heavy industry in Putin's Russia. It is fortunate. He knew they were going to be privatizing that stuff, or got a good tip. He also has extensive business ties to Russian oligarchs that are directly linked to Putin. Blavatnik holds a stake in Rusal, which was founded by Russian aluminum magnate. Haha, we always laugh at that. And there's the guy, Oleg Deripaska. As the Dallas News notes, Putin's state-controlled bank owns nearly 4% of Deripaska's stake in Rusal. What? The bank owns 4% of Deripaska's stake in Rusal? I'm not even sure what to make of that. Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, who's been indicted on money laundering and conspiracy charges as part of Mueller's probe, had a $10 million annual contract with Deripaska through his lobbying firm. He reportedly offered the Russian oligarch for private briefings 2 weeks before Trump secured the Republican nomination. Blavatnik is also publicly associated with Viktor Vekselberg. I don't know if we've heard about him before. He's a Putin ally who owns part of the Bank of Cyprus, which we have heard of, which handed over Manafort's bank records to Mueller in November, Bloomberg reports. Blavatnik and Vekselberg are co-founders of the Renova Group. Does that sound familiar? I don't know. Along with Blavatnik, Mueller is also reportedly scrutinizing $285,000 in donations from U.S. citizen Andrew Intrater, the head of Columbus Nova, which is a subsidiary of Renova Group. Intrater is Vekselberg's cousin. This does get a little complex. By the way, Bank of Cyprus, yes, in case you were wondering, that's, what's his name? The Commerce Secretary's deal. What's his name again? I can't even remember his name now. It's the old bag guy who used to own the Sago mine. What? Wilbur Ross. That's it. Okay. Yeah, that's his place. The Bank of Cyprus. The third identified target as a possible. The third identified as a possible target of Mueller's investigation is oil magnate Simon Kukes. I'm guessing Kukes, and it's not cukes like cucumbers, right? A Russian-born American chemist, wow, who Open Secrets reports contributed more than $150,000 to Trump's campaign and joint fundraising committee, Trump Victory. Dallas News identifies a fourth major donor with known ties to the Russian government as IMG Artists chief executive Alexander Shostarovich. How about that? Alexander Shostarovich, IMG Artists. What's that? I don't know. In total, these four men, quote, made $10.4 million in political contributions from the start of the 2015-2016 cycle through September 2017, and 99% of those contributions went to Republicans, according to the report. Perhaps the most insidious connection, this is it, this is where the insidiousness lies, or most of it anyway, is the one to Trump's campaign and Citizens United. And by the way, they get to it right here. Never mind. It's about Citizens United. You'll hear it in a second. U.S. corporations and individuals can donate as much money as they want to political campaigns through political action committees and nonprofit organizations, thanks to David Bossie, chairman of the conservative group Citizens United. Bossie led the effort to remove limits on campaign finance laws. He was also deputy campaign manager to the Trump presidential campaign. He's also on a book tour now, co-authored the new Corey Lewandowski book with him, and has worked. I think he's actually gotten a position. I thought he had a position in the administration at some point, but maybe not. He's working closely enough in and around it anyway. The Dallas News notes that many of Trump's most prominent backers, including Robert and Rebecca Mercer and Eric Prince, benefit immensely from the Citizens United ruling. Dan Backer and Russian-born emigre and the general counsel for 3 pro-Trump political action committees, also was the lead attorney for the 2014 Supreme Court case that removed the cap on a number of candidates and political parties, wealthy donors, the number of candidates and political parties wealthy donors can contribute to. The campaign finance laws currently in place mean the donations from these Russia-linked businessmen fall within our current framework. As House Intelligence Committee ranking member Adam Schiff of California explained to ABC News, unless the contributions were directed by a foreigner, they would be legal. Still, Schiff argued, they could be of interest to investigators examining allegations of Russian influence in the 2016 campaign. Obviously, if there were those that had associations with the Kremlin that were contributing, that would be of keen concern, Schiff added. The oligarchs are really part and parcel of the service of the Kremlin. They can be called upon basically at Putin's will to do what needs to be done. It gives them some distance from the Kremlin and gives them some plausible deniability. So I guess they're depending on that, and that's the way you launder Kremlin money. If the Kremlin hands oligarchs money or arranges for oligarchs to stay oligarchs, let's say, and not be, decapitated and have their body thrown in an alley somewhere and all their money appropriated. If they if they arrange instead for them to maintain an oil and gas monopoly, for instance, that turns them into billionaires, and they are supposed to give thanks for that position by turning over $1 million to the Republican National Committee through some network of LLCs or what have you, well, that's the price of it, and Putin gets to direct it, and we can't complain too much about it, because after all, the people he's directing have dual citizenship, and so therefore, blah, 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 and it's all legal. Well, legal, but interesting for the special counsel nonetheless. So I guess we can draw a distinction there. It may be legal, but it may help paint a more complete picture of something that is not. All right. So moving on, lots of other things in pocket that we can use to occupy our time. I see we're going to bump up against our next break pretty soon, but thank you for redirecting us back to the always important Trump-Russia thread, if you will, Kate and Alexis and others who brought us back there. Lots more to catch up on, and let's see what else. What might we fit in right before our break? Well, I don't know. Let's see. We got all kinds of things to look at here. Oh, look, I saved another of Kate's tweets from over the weekend. Yes, that was the transition I wanted to make too, and I'm glad I saved it. She had sent me David Farenthold's tweet from Friday. It was post-show, but immediately post-show, pretty much. And I said, I wish we had gone there then. Now we can go there here today on Monday. Holy crow, says David Farenthold. That's not holy crap, not holy Christ, and not holy cow, but something in the middle. Holy crow. I've heard it said. Just noticed this from Cranes, New York, and that's what we were talking about earlier. I guess Trump turns out to be worth a lot less than claimed. No surprise there. But Cranes, New York says for 2016, Donald Trump's business told Cranes, because they asked, that it had $9.5 billion in revenue. That makes it sound like a rather large company. But guess what? It isn't, because later, Trump's official disclosures gave an actual number of $600 to $700 million, which is a lot of money, but as Farenthold points out, that's only 1/13 of what it claimed, because $9.5 billion is considerably more money, you see. We'll take a look, perhaps, at the Cranes article and discuss what it means, if anything, besides the fact that Donald Trump is a lying, vain jerk, which we already knew. We'll see if there's any news value to it after this short break. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Into our last segment for the day. Going to cross the finish line by continuing with that thread we were transitioning out of from the Cranes New York Business Report. The Trump Organization sees fortunes fall. Why the firm saw itself drop on our list of the largest privately held companies. And the answer is because they weren't making very much money, and that's it, basically. But there's so much more intriguing stories behind that. The Trump Organization's hotel division in January announced plans for the company's first New York project since Trump Soho started rising in 2006, the infamous Trump Soho, that in the middle of so many of our stories. The firm said it had signed a letter of intent with an unidentified party. No one wants to be identified, huh? To develop a new Scion hotel here, a less upscale brand than typical Trump hotels. Since then, President Donald Trump's company said it would open a Scion, as well as 3 budget-priced American Idea hotels in Mississippi, where there's huge demand, I guess. As for the New York Scion project, city officials and rival hotel developers said they were unaware of any progress, and a Trump Hotels spokeswoman said it's unlikely the city will ever see a Scion or American Idea hotel. I don't believe New York is currently a priority for those brands, she said. Interesting idea, by the way. It's actually not a bad business idea. The idea of developing an off-brand but Trump-associated hotel that they can charge less for and not damage the Trump brand, but also still sucker rubes in deeply red states where they love Donald Trump into staying there, even if for no particular reason. I can't afford $500 a night to stay in the Trump International Hotel at the old post office in D.C. or whatever, and I can't afford to stay at Mar-a-Lago, but I can afford, $69 a night at the American Idea Hotel. And granted, it's not a Trump property, but it still puts money in Donald Trump's pockets, and that's what I want to do. Plus, free cookies when you check in, and a free breakfast in the morning, so you can't go wrong with that. Pretty smart, right? And it's actually not a bad business idea. How to get money out of the hands of suckers who can't afford to pay in gold. Across the city, these are halcyon days for real estate developers. The largest commercial landlord in Manhattan, SL Green Realty, is building a skyscraper next to Grand Central Terminal. And in September, it teamed up with RXR Realty to acquire a nearly 50% stake in a midtown skyscraper, worldwide plaza for $1.7 billion. Does any of this have anything to do with anybody? Well, sort of. The city's largest developer by market capitalization, Vornado Realty Trust. You remember them? They are transforming the Farley Post Office building into a waiting room for Penn Station, while its office towers command record rents. Vornado is one of the partners, I thought, in Jared Kushner's venture at 666, believe it or not, Fifth Avenue. Yet the city's best-known landlord is missing out. Here we are, back to Trump. Not only are the Trump Organization's plans to develop a hotel here going nowhere, but prices are slumping for condos at Trump Tower and the Trump International Hotel and Tower. And golfers are shunning the Trump golf links at Ferry Point in the Bronx, where revenue through mid-September has fallen by more than $1.1 million in the past 2 years to $5.7 million amid a 16% drop in rounds played. In addition, The Trump Organization, a perennial leader in the Crain's list of largest privately held companies, has fallen steeply in the rankings from number 40 to number 40 from number 3 last year, following the president's disclosures to federal regulators that revealed the organization's revenue is less than a tenth of what the firm had reported since at least 2010. So what's been going on here? I mean, is it a big deal? Probably not by itself, although I could see it playing into the Trump-Russia Mueller investigation thread in terms of, ironically, it'll end up being evidence that he was a mark for Russian interference because his fortunes were fading so quickly. What would be hilarious is if they weren't fading all that quickly. It's just that he was so vain that he lied about his net worth so that he could be at the top of the Crain's list, which is worth nothing by itself. Although I suppose in ancillary benefits, you can get deals signed or wield leverage that you aren't otherwise entitled to by being able to point to, well, you've all read in Crain's how rich I am. You're not going to cross me, are you? Well, I wouldn't cross number 3, but number 40, it would occur to me perhaps to cross. Well, that's why I had to lie, to stay up at number 3 this whole time. Wouldn't it be amazing if his vanity forced him to lie about the valuation of the company so that he looked extraordinarily rich? But he really wasn't particularly rich, but he was getting by just fine on $600 to $700 million. That's not bad, right? I think you and I could probably manage. But instead, along the way, it created the narrative of he's losing his grip on his fortune and needed to be bailed out by the Russians, even if he never was. I think that would be pretty hilarious. I don't know what would be funnier, getting caught red-handed having actually done it, or hanging yourself on or I guess hoisting yourself on the petard, your own petard, of your own vanity. Except I probably used that expression incorrectly, because nobody uses it correctly. It's just not possible, as I understand it. So anyway, so he was lying about how much money he was making so that he could stay at the top of the Crain's list. And it worked because Crain's had nothing else to go on. It's a privately held company. You have to tell me how much you're earning, and then I rank you. You're probably lying, but I figure everybody's lying. So maybe it all comes out in the wash, unless there's one really huge liar like Donald Trump in here who could distort everything. And now that you can get in trouble with the federal government, even as president, believe it or not, for lying on your disclosures, and we can look at your disclosures instead of relying on your self-reporting about your company's worth, we find out, oh yeah, you're worth about a tenth of what you said. You exaggerated by a factor of 10 when you told us how much money you were making, and we believed you, but now the federal government has you by the whatever, and now why would he obey that part of the federal law? I don't know. I guess he just doesn't want any more trouble. So pretty funny. Now that the federal government has a role in leveraging the reality and pulling it out of them, it turns out, your business actually kind of sucks. It's not bad. You're on the list still of Crain's largest privately held companies, but number 40 is some kind of a come down from number 3. Why he was satisfied with number 3, I have no idea. Why didn't he just say he was making $1 bazillion and go for number 1? Politics, the article continues, partly explain why the Trump Organization has gone quiet in its hometown, where 80% of voters supported Hillary Clinton in last year's presidential election. But there are also business reasons. While RXR, Vornado, and other companies focus on developing commercial office buildings, Trump historically has specialized in 2 sectors that appear especially saturated: hotels and luxury condominiums. There's been a ton of building of both of those all over the city, said Jesse Rosenthal, a senior real estate analyst at independent research firm Credit Sites. Regardless of what people think about Trump, the question is, do we really need more? Although they do link to a story that says one developer is betting that the answer is yes. The city's supply of hotel rooms has grown 50% since 2008 to 115,000 and is expected to reach 142,000 in the next few years, according to a September report by NYC and Company. Meanwhile, 9,000 condo units have been built in Manhattan since the start of 2015, with another 9,000 expected to be completed by 2020, said Jonathan Miller, CEO of appraisal firm Miller Samuel. Half of the apartments that have come online are unsold, he estimates, and yet they're going to have 9,000 more. And all the more reason then to sell them to Russian oligarchs who never intend to live in them anyway. and are only using them to launder money. Why not start, for instance, I'm not certain where the for instance came from, but why does this merit some attention? I guess we'll justify it this way by saying, if you know that there's 9,000 units that have come online since 2015 and half of them are unsold, why would you be working to bring some portion of another 9,000 online if there's clearly no demand for them? And the answer is, at least in the Trump world, demand doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that there aren't enough people interested in occupying units. Nobody occupies our units. Trump units are mostly empty anyway. It's just that they're paid for. I am selling units to people who have no intention of living there, except possibly after, should Russia collapse or should they get themselves on Putin's S list and they tried to escape to the United States thinking they'd be safe there, they'll at least have a safe house to land in. And if that's not where they land, at least they'll have real estate that they can launder their ill-gotten rubles through and turn into cold, hard, untraceable, more or less, American cash. So if you're selling units to people who don't care to live in them, normally a person can only live in so many houses, although John McCain apparently has a dozen, and, certainly other people like him do. But, he's got a cash cow here. Russians love buying condos in his buildings, not because they want a place to live, but because it's a convenient way to work with somebody who understands their plight and understands money laundering and will ask no questions. And now somebody who can probably even protect them from certain kinds of prosecution, given that he's president of the United States. We'll see how it works out for them. Trump brands are losing value, the article concludes here. It seems unlikely that the Trump name will appear on any new condominiums soon because the market for Trump-branded apartments in the city is cooling fast. The average price per square foot for a Trump Tower apartment has fallen by 23%, since 2015. It's an old building, too. We must admit that. According to the Wall Street Journal, anyway, while prices have held steady at other Midtown towers, excluding new developments, at the Trump International Hotel and Tower on Central Park West, the average price per square foot is down 24%. A spokeswoman, though, told the Journal that the Trump Organization is, quote, incredibly proud of the overall performance that Trump properties continue to achieve. Whatever. In addition to grappling with a crowded hotel and condo market and hostile political atmosphere here, several Trump Organization leaders are dealing with federal investigations. Executive Vice President Donald Trump Jr., who runs the family business with brother Eric, has been questioned by Congress over Russian interference in last year's election. Michael Cohen, a top Trump Organization lawyer, also was called to appear before the Senate investigators about the Russia matter. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller reportedly wants to interview Rona Graff, Trump Organization's senior vice president and the president's longtime personal assistant. She was the one acting as gatekeeper for, do you need to reach the president by phone? Call Rona Graff. She can set it up. She was the gatekeeper. And she, like Hope Hicks, how does she do it? Will end up likely in some pretty serious trouble at some point. Graff was the executive who typically reported Trump Organization revenue figures to Cranes, by the way. That means she's the liar here. Cranes relies on companies to self-report for the list. Last year's $9.5 billion in revenue reported by the organization looks preposterous in light of federal filings made by the president in the past year. Those indicate the Trump Organization generates between $600 and $700 million in annual revenue. Neither Graff nor a Trump Organization spokeswoman responded to requests for comment about the discrepancy. Because it's embarrassing and there is no explanation for it. We were lying to get to the top of your stupid list. Isn't it your fault for doing such a stupid list? Could that be the case? It could be. Will they convince them of that? Probably not. All right. The leaf blower is still going. You wouldn't even think that they would still be going. There's not that many leaves here, but they just want to ruin the show, I think, is what's happening here. It's clearly Russians blowing the leaves out of my backyard. All right. Well, we got a theme for the last couple minutes of the show, and we're going to use it this way. We're going to start naming some names of people that you should be watching and who will be causing controversy in the coming weeks, I think. Let's see. How will we handle this? We'll start with the Think Progress piece that has more names in it. But this is the theme of the last couple of days. It's going to start emerging as a theme in the papers, I think. You may have read some of these pieces yourself. Functionaries inside the Trump administration who don't belong there, are highly unqualified, or may even be robbing the place, and are there for the purposes of causing more chaos. So we might as well start calling those names out. By the way, the Warlock, who is in, asks, so what if Trump makes money? I don't know. Did anybody have a problem with it? Was that part of the segment, that it's a problem that Trump makes money? No, of course not. Emoluments, of course, would be a problem, but we don't care if Trump makes money. I mean, I wish he didn't, because he's a jerk and I hate his guts and I wish he was destitute and destroyed. But other than that, no, I don't have any problem with the fact that he makes money. It's just that it should be made honestly, and it shouldn't be money laundering. And it shouldn't be emoluments either. Okay, so let's see. Where were we? Yes, Think Progress has the larger format piece here, under the title of Meet the Little-Known Trump Staffers Who Are Dismantling the Federal Government. I also have one hanging around here from ProPublica, who kicked things off mid-last week with a piece entitled Trump's mining regulator nominee was once dropped by the agency for doing, quote, junk work. Previously accused of sabotaging the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement, Stephen Gardner is the name we're talking about here, is now likely to be its next chief, along with these highly unqualified and, in fact, rated not qualified judicial nominees. We have these nominees to executive departments. Again, we'll start with the Think Progress thing and try and zip through a number of these names. Josh Israel and Danielle McClain put this thing together for this Monday. An October OMB leak revealed 8 staffers taking an axe to domestic policy. So who are these people and how can we watch them? We'll read you the intro and then try and do some skimming here. In August 2016, a day after then presidential candidate Donald Trump announced some of his economic plans, he called in to Fox Business Network to discuss those plans with host Maria Bartiromo. In their conversation, Trump insisted his assault on government programs would not have any negative ramifications. How could that be? I don't know. Doesn't matter. We're going to be doing smart budget cuts that will make it just as good or better than it is right now, but for a lot less money, he vowed. Of course, it doesn't work that way. Congress has not yet enacted his massive budget cuts, but that has not stopped the administration from dispatching a team of domestic policy aides to push for cuts, unilateral executive actions, and conservative actions across the federal government. Because Trump has appointed very few officials, that's true, and you should remember that, the small group of conservative activists who are attempting to implement his agenda could hold outsized influence. A leaked document from Trump's Domestic Policy Council, reportedly leaked from the OMB and published in October by Crooked Media, identified 8 Domestic Policy Council members who are apparently quietly leading that charge as points of contact. The Office of Management and Budget did not respond to multiple requests for comment on the document. A Think Progress examination of those mostly young and deeply conservative staffers found that each is uniquely suited to dismantle or outsource a key part of the federal government. I know we're not going to get through the entirety of these articles. The theme I would like to lay out for you, and perhaps we will fill in the blanks and establish the theme for you with fuller evidence and better, and all the benefits of all this good reporting over the next couple of days is this. One, there is an ongoing lack of ability, really, of the Trump administration, or willingness or interest in filling thousands of federal government posts. Now, granted, Democrats were always going to make it difficult to fill those because a lot of them require Senate approval, and they were going to drag things out. Though they couldn't filibuster anybody, as we illustrated early on in the year, they can make it excruciating to wait for your approval. And, of course, the longer we make people wait, the more we find out that they are actually scumbags, thieves, child molesters, or what have you. And occasionally we are able to thwart their nominations. And I think some of the most egregious judicial nominations we learned last week were losing their support among Republicans and even Judiciary Committee members. Even though they were voting for them anyway, they were very clearly laying out how horribly unqualified they were. And that's another story all by itself. But there's another thread of stories also in pocket which have not yet been discussed, which illustrate the way that the Trump administration is getting around this problem. Very senior people very often are statutorily necessary in order to get things done in a department. It must be a secretary, deputy secretary, etc., or even acting deputy secretary who signs off on certain things according to law, and all they have are acting executive, acting deputy secretaries and acting secretaries in some of these places. And there's also federal law on the books that limits the amount of time that somebody can operate as an acting secretary or acting deputy secretary or what have you. And the Vacancies Act governs that, and people are hitting those finish lines, hitting those posts now, and have been for a couple of weeks and a couple of months in some cases, or those things are coming up, and it would be illegal for them to serve in those capacities. And dozens of such officials are simply declaring themselves to be deputy secretaries or undersecretaries. I don't think anybody's done it at the cabinet level. I don't think you'd be able to get away with that. But where no one's paying attention, they're simply saying, okay, the Vacancy Act says I can no longer be acting deputy undersecretary. Then fine, I'm not. I'm just regular acting. I'm just regular deputy secretary or deputy undersecretary. And you're not. You can't just say that and be that way by magic. But who's got the time to follow this stuff and raise protests, and under what, in what forum do we raise the protests? They're just simply assuming these jobs and signing off on things, and people don't know what else to do. Some of these people are written up in here, but here's what they're actually up to. But there's a whole other story about how it is, by what authority do you say this? None in particular. I'm doing it, and nobody else knows what to do. They're just used to getting paperwork signed, and so they do what I say, and they don't know where else to go with it, and who could be a whistleblower and all this. All right, here's a couple of the names that you should keep in mind then. Rob Goad, handling, it's G-O-A-D, like road. Gob Road, but his name is actually Robert. Rob Goad, you see? Just reverse the letters. Handling education policy for the Domestic Policy Council is Robert T. Goad II. Goes by Rob. The leaked documents suggest his work has focused on two key priorities: expanding school choice and making colleges and universities share some of the responsibility for student loans. Both efforts would divert federal funding for public schools toward private and even religious schools. So he's up to some dirty work there. I just want to get those names on record, and we'll read a little bit more about exactly what they're doing and where they came from, which is equally important. And another thread in this story, I guess I'll just pause for a second to throw that one in there. Lots of these folks come from essentially backgrounds of pure conservative wingnut welfare. They graduated very often from stupid places like Liberty University, Regent University, or Hillsdale College, the one private ultra-conservative college that got this tremendous tax break in the upcoming tax bill, like from out of nowhere. They got a special break, which I think we may have mentioned, but if not, there's definitely a story in pocket that will explain some of this. But people who graduated from these schools that are way out of the mainstream of like teaching actual thought or anything like that, they're just, they're religious or ultra-conservative controlled organizations. And then it might even have been the tweet that led me to this Think Progress thing. I think it was Ian Millhiser pointing out that there was one of the people featured in here graduates from Hillsdale College and then just goes to the Heritage Foundation and does nothing but work for the Heritage Foundation for his entire life to date, still a relatively young person, and then gets put in charge of some policy area. It's like a fantasy draft league. They just take people who have learned nothing and have no experience but, living on the conservative dole, writing stupid think pieces about wouldn't it be great to grind people up and eat them, and how much that would save everybody in taxes somehow and boost the stock market. I don't know. They stupid theories, and then all of a sudden these people are federal officials. And it's happening all over the place. Goad is, just one of dozens. Here's the next one is Laura Cunliffe, Cunliffe. Laura Cunliffe is the point person for changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. That's food stamps, as you and I may know it, and the Farm Bill, according to the leaked document. The changes would apparently eliminate exemptions to SNAP's work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents, an exemption only available at most to 15% of that group. It would also eliminate an employment and training program the administration calls duplicative. Zero out grants the administration believes prioritize the purchase of some legumes for school lunches and research. Oh, huge problem. And remove the food insecurity nutrition incentive, which encourages SNAP beneficiaries to eat more fruits and vegetables. Can't have that. They could be eating Big Macs. Let's see. Cunliffe, whose maiden name here is Guarino, by the way, Laura Guarino, is a 2007 graduate of Wheaton College, an evangelical Christian school in Illinois, known for its strict code of conduct that prohibits alcohol, tobacco, pornography, premarital heterosexual relations, and all homosexual behavior. She received a JD, that's a law degree, from Samford University, not Stanford, Samford University, a Southern Baptist-affiliated law school in Birmingham, Alabama. She serves on the advisory board for the law school's Center for Children, Law, and Ethics, a policy center led by David Smolin, a socially conservative marriage and adoption law scholar, and that I might have put in quote marks there. James Shirk is next on the list. He's the Heritage Foundation only dude that we were talking about. He's the point person on labor issues. According to the document, his priorities are to reduce benefits to federal employees and labor unions. Yeah, that's the labor guy, you see. This apparently would include cutting benefits and freezing salaries to bring federal pay in line with the private sector. How would that even be possible? The private sector pay is much higher. Reducing paid leave for government employees and massively increasing funding for a little-known office at the Department of Labor that is tasked with robustly investigating union corruption. Well, that'll be exciting to him. By the way, some of these benefits were included in Trump's budget proposals, and Representative Virginia Fox's, Fox chairs the House Committee on Education and Workforce, she recently demanded that Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta do more to investigate alleged union wrongdoing. He's the guy who is a 2003 alumnus of Hillsdale College and has done nothing but work at the Heritage Foundation on the conservative dole, the wingnut welfare, for all of his life. Kara McKee also gets a call out here. Kara McKee's portfolio includes policies on career training and is working on efforts both to loosen restrictions on how those programs work and to save money by combining efforts and probably eliminating those efforts as well. Let's see. She did her undergrad studying at Prestonwood Christian Academy in Plano, Texas, where she spoke out against the growing national debt, which apparently doesn't concern her anymore. But then she moved on to Princeton from there, so you got to respect that, right? She challenged former Obama budget director Peter Orszag on economic policy and joined the campus chapter of Christian Union, which does all the most, fantastic and liberal things, as you know. All right. Well, we're getting right up against it here. Peter White also gets a mention in here, point of contact for issues related to aeronautics and space. I just want to get the names on the record at this point. Darren Selnick, tasked with fixing the Veterans Affairs Department. We'll see how he does on that case in the coming months. And, of course, that probably means privatizing much of the operation there. Also, Katie Talento gets a mention here. She's, let's see, what is she involved with? Two women are listed on the document as overseeing health policy area, Katie Talento and Alex Campow. In that capacity, the duo would be trying to dismantle the long list of USAID and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention health programs aimed at curbing sexually transmitted disease, obesity, chronic disease, teen pregnancy, and infant mortality, and improving environmental health and worker safety. All of which, of course, sucks, and we got to get rid of it as soon as possible. Man, they're all over the place. So you got a couple of names to watch. We'll return for details on just who they are, what they're doing, and where they came from in the near future, I hope. And in the meantime, it is time to turn the microphones over to Justice Putnam for him to bring us his West Coast cookbook and speakeasy, and I'll tell you what he's going to get to that we missed. so far today. He starts with a clip of Brian Stetler dishing on the Trump-Fox GOP feedback loop, important just right now. Then, on the rest of the menu, considering the plight of the popular evangelical speaker who has been flooded with death threats by the Christian machine after she was publicly critical of Trump. Oh no. And the CDC chief tells staff that there are no banned 7 deadly words, while quietly not refuting the Washington Post report that there actually is such a list.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Ajit Pai from the FCC also remains in the spotlight. Turns out he has evidence mounting that he is a bit of an alt-right sympathizer. And then, of course, a look at Uber. We always love to look at Uber and realize that evil doesn't only live in the Trump administration. They stole trade secrets, bribed foreign officials, and everything. Coming up next.